Hello everyone. I hope you all are doing well. This is Anushka Bumra. So today we are on the last day of the calendar year 2022. This has been a transformative year, I would say, in terms of the regulatory developments that came up during the year, with the corporate governance requirements becoming applicable on debt listed entities, the maintenance of SDD for both equity as well as debt listed entities, the revisiting of the list of related parties, which the companies would have already been done. All this has surely been a taxing exercise for the companies. In this presentation, I'll be talking about the developments that came in the SEBI regulations during the year 2022. While my colleague Payal Agarwal has already given a broad view of the amendments that came in, I'll rather talk about some detail of the regulations and the amendments in the SEBI regulations. So I'll just put my PPT on screen and then we'll start understanding. All right. So talking about the SEBI regulations, first we'll talk about the LODR regulations. So under the listing regulations, first we talk about high value listed entities. So this amendment, while it came in 2021 only, but why is it relevant now? Because the high value, the requirement of the corporate governance on the high value debt listed entities becomes applicable mandatorily from April 1, 2023. Who are high value debt listed entities? Those entities that have listed their non-convertible securities as per definition in NCS regulations, and where the principal outstanding value of the non-convertible securities is 500 crore rupees or more. So these entities, and this limit has to be determined as on March 31, 2021. So these entities, they were categorized as high value debt listed entities, and all the corporate governance requirements which are currently which were applicable on before this, only two companies that have listed their specified securities would be becoming applicable on the high value debt listed entities. So up till March 31, 2023, this is on comply or explain basis, which is that the companies have to endeavor to comply to the corporate governance norms, and it becomes mandatorily applicable from April 1, 2023. Now, what are the corporate governance norms? That would include appointment of independent directors, audit committee, NRC, risk management committee, the related party framework under Regulation 23 becomes applicable. Then the corporate governance report under Regulation 27, and all the regulations from 17 to 27 becomes applicable on HVDLs. Next, we see the appointment of independent directors. Okay, so there has been a significant change in the process of appointment of independent directors. So, like when we talk about appointment, there is under the listing regulations, we'll just see like a comparison also between, yeah, we'll, one second. We'll also see a comparison between the listing regulations and the, so yeah, the under Companies Act, the Companies Act provides for ordinary resolution for appointment of independent directors and special resolution for reappointment of independent directors. And then there is LODR regulations. I think there's some issues, so I will not try this on this white screen. I'll just explain it as it is. Okay, let's just, yeah. So under LODR regulations for appointment of independent directors, the companies have to obtain special resolution. If the special resolution fails, the company is not able to take approval through special resolution, then it has to check whether ordinary majority of votes have been received or not. And if that is done, whether ordinary majority of public shareholders has been received. So, and when we talk about Companies Act, for appointment of IDs, there's ordinary. For all types of directors, it is ordinary resolution. So here the stricter provision among the two would be SEBI, because primarily it provides for SR, special resolution. And then if that fails, there's alternate I would not say alternate, but yeah, there's if that option doesn't work, then they'll have to check whether ordinary majority votes have been received from the or from the public shareholders. When we talk about reappointment of independent directors, then the listing regulations, it is again special resolution, the same process, special resolution, if not that, ordinary resolution, ordinary majority of votes of the public shareholders, and Companies Act provides for special resolution. So here, the stricter provision becomes the Companies Act. So if there's no such parallel provision that comes up in the Companies Act with respect to aligning it with listing regulations, in that case, the stricter provision, which is currently the Companies Act, which only provides for special resolution and does not go beyond uh, that, considering whether ordinary resolution ordinary resolution of public shareholders has been obtained or not. So in that case, Companies Act would prevail up until any amendment comes in under the Companies Act, aligning it with the SEBI listing regulations. Then there was major amendment with respect to the related party framework under the listing regulations. This was again notified in November 2021. Part of the amendment became applicable from April 2022 itself. There has been change in definition of related parties, related party transactions, then some transactions of the subsidiaries to come up at the audit committee level of the holding company, which is based on a threshold limit, which is 10% of the annual consolidated turnover. Those transactions to come up at the level of the audit committee of the holding company for approval. Then part of the amendments become applicable from April 1, 2023, which includes a very important amendment, which is purpose and effect test. So the entire the entire framework, the entire related party framework is based on the concept of burden and benefit. So there is burden on one and benefit to the other. So when a particular transaction is entered by a company with an unrelated party with an intention to benefit a related party, the whole idea of purpose and effect test is to catch hold of such transactions where it has been camouflaged as being a transaction which is with an unrelated party and without any benefit without any is not involving any conflict of interest, but has been designed as such where it has been entered, like the party at the forefront is an unrelated party, but the transaction is ultimately benefiting a related party. So such transactions, there has not been any specific criteria which has been provided that so and so transactions would be considered where there's purpose and effect. All that has been given is there has to be purpose of benefiting a related party, and it should also have an effect. Now, purpose and effect is not something which would be documented, because if I want to enter into any transaction which I'm designing in a way that uh, I want to make it look like like a very usual transaction with a non-related party and not involving conflict of interest, I would not document it anywhere to show that yeah, it is with a related party or I'm benefiting so and so my related party. So it would be a challenge to for the companies also and for the regulator to identify such purpose and effect. We'll see whether any guidelines in this respect are received from the regulator before this become applicable from April 1, 2023. Also, the from April 1, 2023, the threshold limit with respect to the transactions of the subsidiary that will come to the audit committee of the holding company, that also becomes 10% of the annual standalone turnover of the subsidiary. Then we see consultation paper. SEBI came up with a consultation paper in 2022, November 2022, with respect to Regulation 30 Red with Schedule 3. Now, what is this exactly? Under Schedule 3, party which is applicable on companies that have listed their specified securities, there are two paras, Para A and Para B. Para A applies Para is for deemed material events. Companies have to blindly follow that list. That if my item falls in this list, I don't have to think about anything else and I have to report it to stock exchanges. And Para B is for transactions or for items that have to be tested for materiality. Those are not deemed to be material. So under the consultation paper has it in the consultation paper it has been proposed to add certain items to Para A. There has been threshold limit which has been prescribed with respect to materiality under Para B. Because under Para B, it simply provides authority to the board or KMPs to determine the materiality according to the materiality policy of companies. And there's no quantitative criteria as such. So the consultation paper proposes a quantitative criteria which would be common for all the companies, and this has to be documented in the materiality policy. Then there has been amendment, there has been certain insertion in the Para A for items that would be deemed material, which includes the companies that the companies have to, like some top companies as per market capitalization, um, they have to give disclosure to stock exchanges with respect to any media rumors that come up. Change in SMPs have to be reported to the stock exchanges. Currently, only change in directors and KMPs is there. Change in SMP is also to be reported, and many other. We have specific articles on all of this, and I'll put the link in the description box for each of the headings and each of the subject we discuss in this video. So moving forward, like currently it was open for comments. Now we're just waiting for the amendment to come up, and let's see what all is approved by SEBI and what comes up in the amendment. Next, talking about companies that have listed their debt securities, which fall under the companies that fall under Chapter 5 of LODR. There, it provides a scheme of arrangement. So, for equity listed, for companies that have listed their specified securities, Regulation 37 is applicable with respect to scheme of arrangement, which provides for obtaining observation letter or NOC from the SEBI, and the validity for which is 6 months. The companies that have listed their debt securities, similar provision uh, under Regulation 59A has become applicable for companies that have their debt securities listed. They also have to obtain NOC or observation letter from the SEBI in the same manner. Next, we move on to amendment in the ICDR regulations. So, talking first is about the preferential issue. So, there was a consultation paper of SEBI which came up in November 26, 2021, where it was proposed to revamp the preferential issue guidelines. Then SEBI in its board meeting on 28th December approved some proposal in the consultation paper, and finally the amendment came in Jan 15, 2022. So what was the amendment that came up in the preferential issue guidelines? Preferential issue is governed under Chapter 5 of the ICDR regulations. First is with respect to pricing norms. So pricing, which is under Regulation 164 of the ICDR, pricing previously before this amendment, it was like for frequently traded shares, two criteria, where it provided that volume weighted average price of related equity shares during 26 weeks preceding the relevant date or 2 weeks preceding the relevant date, higher of the two. Relevant date is the date which falls 30 days before the shareholders meeting is to be held for approving the preferential issue. So for say I'm holding board meeting for approving raising of funds by way of preferential issue, and at the same meeting I also approved the notice of shareholders meeting. So accordingly, like the date of the shareholders meeting has also been decided. So any day which is before 30 days prior to the shareholders meeting would becomes the relevant date. So it was felt that 26 weeks time period which was provided for determining the price, 26 weeks is quite a long period of time considering the market volatility, and it could be possible that the price becomes unattractive for the investor. So because of that, the pricing norms were modified to which now provides for 90 trading days or 10 trading days preceding the relevant date, whichever is higher. Next is valuation. This under regulation 166A was inserted, has been inserted, which provides for change in control. So there can be instances where preferential issue results into change in control. Control as defined under SEBI takeover regulations. So wherever there's change in wherever preferential issue results into change in control or allotment of more than 5% of the post-issue diluted share capital to a single allottee or allottees acting in concert, in such a case, the companies have to obtain a valuation report from an independent registered valuer. So when we talk about the pricing under 164, there that pricing certificate can be given by either PCS or stat auditor or practicing chartered accountant. But valuation where there's change in control or more than 5%, there the and also in cases where preferential issue is the allotment is for consideration other than cash, there valuation report from independent registered valuer has to be obtained. Committee of IDs, again, wherever there's any change in control, as defined under takeover regulations, committee of IDs has to be formed. They have to give a reasonable recommendation. While forming a committee of IDs and obtaining their recommendation is already a part of takeover regulations where where the transaction triggers the requirement of open offer. Here, before coming up with the preferential issue, the company have to conduct a meeting of the committee of IDs and have to obtain their recommendation. Lock-in, there has been relaxation with respect to the lock-in requirements. So the lock-in requirement for promoters or persons forming part of promoter group is for shares, allotment of specified securities, or shares allotted pursuant to conversion of warrant. The lock-in period which was there was 3 years from the date of trading approval. This 3 years has been relaxed to 18 months. So now it is 18 months from the date of trading approval, or where there is shares allotted pursuant to conversion of warrant, 18 months from the date of such allotment. Consideration other than cash was already a part of preferential issue. Like shares can be allotted under preferential issue for consideration other than cash, but there was ambiguity with respect to what would be the component to be considered under other than cash, and how would the same be valued. So this has been provided that consideration other than cash would only be through share swaps, and it has to be determined by valuation by report of dependent registered valuer. Certificate from PCS has to be obtained with respect to the compliance with the with Chapter 5 of ICTR. This certificate format is currently not provided under the stock exchanges checklist for in principle approval. But a general certificate that the company is in compliance with Chapter 5 would do until the exchanges come up with the format. Then this was about preferential issue guidelines. Then for companies that are coming up with an IPO, very recently this has been introduced. An alternate method for the companies to come up with an IPO has been introduced, where the companies can choose to file their draft offer of document in a confidential mode. Before this, the only method was there the companies have to, when they come up with the draft of a document or offer document, they have to file the same with SEBI stock exchanges, and also that has to be made available to the public for their comments. But with this, there's an alternate mechanism which is available with the companies, that they can choose to not share their offer document or public document with the public until they are sure that they want to go ahead with the IPO. So the first company that has chosen this confidential mode is Tata Play, which is coming up with an IPO, and it has chose to file in the confidential mode. So this was about the amendments that came in the listing regulations and ICDR regulations. In the next part of the video, we'll be discussing about other SEBI regulations and amendments with respect to listed and secured debt securities. Thank you for watching this video.